Hello everybody, this is Refresh, and I'm here to bring you a battle between the 4 Brawl decks and the Face the Hydra challenge deck from Theros. We'll be playing 2 games, first in normal difficulty with 3 Hydra heads and then in hard mode, and we'll be using 2 hero cards apiece. Everybody will be using the Harvester, which says tap, draw a card, then discard a card, and then each deck will have their own specific hero card that they'll be using as well. Since I only have 1 copy of each of these cards, the Harvester that I have here will apply to all 4 decks. Over here in the bottom left we have Syr Gwyn using the Warrior. The Warrior says tap, target creature you control gains haste until end of turn. Over on the bottom right we have Chulane using the Protector. That says tap, prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to the next target creature or player this turn. In the top right we have Korvold, who will be using the Avenger, which says 3 tap, target creature you control gains death touch until end of turn. And in the top left we have Alela, who is going to be using the Hunter, which says tap, target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. We'll be playing these decks as though they were actually Brawl decks, and so each deck will get 30 life apiece, and we will be able to cast their respective commanders from the command zone. We'll get started by drawing 7 cards apiece. Alela draws a Corpse Knight, Wintermoor Commander, Rakdos Guildgate, Steelclaw Lance, Bell of the Brawl, Crystal Slipper, and Temple of Triumph. This is a little short on lands. However, since almost everything we can play, we will just go ahead and keep this, hoping that the Temple of Triumph and the Harvester will get us there in terms of the lands that we need. Chulane draws a Prison Realm, Fairy Formation, Island, Firemine Vessel, Plains, Selesnya Guildgate, and Plains. This is a bit too slow of a hand, and because this is multiplayer, we get a few mulligans, so we're going to take it. Our next hand includes a Forest, Rose Thorn Acolyte, Plains, Fairy Vandal, Shark the Crab, Prison Realm, and Circuitous Route. This is not great, but if we just keep drawing lands, we'll get to the Circuitous Route and be able to cast stuff, so I think we're going to keep this one. Korvold draws a Forest, Gluttonous Troll, Arcane Cygnus, Forest, Golgari Finebroker, Rakdos Guildgate, and Forest. This is a bit of a slow hand, but we do have ramp, so I think that we can keep this one. Alela draws Emergence Zone, Workshop Elder, Smothering Tithe, Plains, Island, Empyrean Eagle, and Ancestral Blade. This is, I think, a fine hand. We have a curve, we have lands, and even though we are missing a black mana here, we don't have anything that requires it, so I think this is fine to keep. Turn number 1, we'll draw. Gwyn draws a Scoured Barrens. Chulane draws a Paradise Druid. Korvold draws a Moldavine Reclamation. Alela draws a Shambling Suit. Syr Gwyn will play the Temple of Triumph tapped. When it enters the battlefield, we scry 1. We'll look at the Icon of Ancestry, and we'll leave it on top. Chulane will play a Forest. Korvold will play the Rakdos Guildgate, which enters the battlefield tapped. Alela will play the Plains. We'll pass to the Hydra, who will cast the topmost card, which is Disorienting Blower. Players can't cast spells until the Hydra's next turn. We'll put this right here to remember that we can't cast spells. At the end of the turn, we'll use a Harvester. Syr Gwyn will draw an Icon of Ancestry, and we will discard the Corpse Knight. Chulane will draw a Leafkin Druid, and we will discard the Fairy Vandal. Korvold will draw a Thorn Mammoth, and we will discard 1 Forest. Alela will draw a Prison Realm, and we will discard the Smothering Tithe, since the Hydra deck never draws. And then we should also note that every deck took 3 damage from the assembled heads to go down to 27, except Chulane is going to tap the Protector and make it so that Syr Gwyn loses 1 less life, so she'll go down to 28 instead. We'll untap. We'll draw. Syr Gwyn draws a Smitten Swordmaster. Chulane draws a Runaway Together. Korvold draws a Rugged Highlands. Alela draws a Conclave Tribunal. Syr Gwyn will play the Scoured Barrens. It enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield we gain 1 life. We'll go up to 29. Chulane will play the Plains. Korvold will play the Rugged Highlands. It enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters we gain 1 life to go up to 28. Alela will play the Island. We'll pass to the Hydra. The Hydra will cast the topmost card, which is Unified Lunge. It deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of heads on the battlefield. There are 3 heads, so we'll take 3 and then 3 to take a total of 6 damage. Chulane will tap the Protector to reduce the damage to Chulane by 1. That will make Syr Gwyn go to 23, Chulane go to 22, as well as Korvold to 22, and Alela will go to 21. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Syr Gwyn draws a Inspiring Veteran and will discard the Smitten Swordmaster. Chulane will draw a Flower and Flourish, and we will discard the Runaway Together. Korvold will draw an Orzhov Enforcer, and we will discard the Thorn Mammoth. Alela will draw a Golden Egg, and we will discard the Conclave Tribunal. We'll untap. We'll draw. Syr Gwyn draws a single combat. Chulane draws an island. Korvold draws a Dreadhorde Invasion. Alela draws a Plains. Syr Gwyn will play the Rakdos Guildgate. It comes into play tapped. And then we'll tap the Barons for black and the Triumph for white, and we will play the Wintermoor Commander. It's a 2-star human knight with Death Touch. Wintermoor Commander's toughness is equal to the number of knights you control. Whenever Wintermoor Commander attacks, another target knight you control gains indestructible until end of turn. We'll tap the Warrior to give the Wintermoor Commander haste. Chulane will play the Island. We'll tap all 3 mana to play the Rosethorn Acolyte. It is a 2/3 Elf Druid, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Korvold will play a Forest. Korvold will tap the Guildgate and the Rugged Highlands and play the Arcane Signet. It is an artifact, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. We'll immediately tap that and the Forest to get black mana from the Arcane Signet, and then play the Orzhov Enforcer. It's a 1/2 human rogue with Death Touch and Afterlife 1. Alela will play a Plains, and will tap all 3 mana to play a Shambling Suit. This is a star 3 artifact construct. Its power is equal to the number of artifacts and enchantments you control. We only control 1, and so it is currently a 1/3. We'll go to combat. The Wintermoor Commander will attack one of the Hydra heads. The Death Touch will kill off the Hydra head. It dies. It says when Hydra head leaves the battlefield, each player gains 2 life. So we'll increase Alela to 23, Gwyn to 25, and the other 2 to 24. We'll reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There are no new heads. The Hydra will then go. It'll cast the topmost card, which is Snapping Fanghead. It is a 0/8 elite creature head, and at the beginning of the Hydra's end step, Snapping Fanghead deals 1 damage to each player. It is the beginning of the end step, and so the heads will deal a total of 5 damage to each player, taking Gwyn to 20, the 2 decks on the right to 19, and Chulane will tap the Protector to also take Alela to 19 instead. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Syr Gwyn draws a Swamp, and we will discard the single combat. Chulane will draw a Time Wipe, and we will discard the Time Wipe. Korvold will draw an Evolution Sage, and we will discard the Evolution Sage. Alela will draw Plains, and we will discard the Prison Realm. We'll untap. We'll draw. Syr Gwyn draws a Colossus Hammer. Chulane draws a Temple of Mystery. Korvold draws a Swamp. Alela draws an All That Glitters. Syr Gwyn will play the Swamp. We'll play this for red and white, and we'll play the Inspiring Veteran. This is a 2/2 human knight. Other knights you control get +1/+1. And then we'll play for red and black the Steelclaw Lance. This is a equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2. Equipped knight for 1. And all of our creatures are knights, so we won't worry about the regular equip cost. Chulane will play the Temple of Mystery tapped. When it enters the battlefield, you get Scry 1, so we'll look at the Steelbane Hydra here, and we will put this one on the bottom. We'll spend 4 mana to cast the Circuitous Route. It says search your library for up to 2 basic land cards and or gate cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. Go searching for some gates. We'll take the Selesnya Guildgate and put it onto the battlefield tapped. We'll take the Simic Guildgate and we'll put it onto the battlefield tapped. We'll shuffle. Korvold will play a Swamp. Then Korvold will tap 4 and play the Gluttonous Troll. This is a 3/3 troll with trample. When it enters the battlefield, create a number of food tokens equal to the number of opponents you have. We only have 1. And then you can pay 1 and green, sacrifice another non-land permanent. Gluttonous Troll gets +2/+2 until end of turn. There's our food. Alela will play another Plains. We'll tap 2 and play the Ancestral Blade. It's an equipment. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token, then attach the Ancestral Blade to it. The equipped creature gets +1/+1. Here's our soldier. So now it's a 2/2. This increases the Shambling Suit to 2 power. Then we'll spend 2 more mana to play the Golden Egg. This is an artifact food. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. We draw a Watery Grave. And then you can pay 1 and tap to sacrifice Golden Egg. It adds 1 mana of any color. Or you can pay 2 and tap to sacrifice Golden Egg and you gain 3 life. This makes this a 3/3. We'll go to combat and we will attack one of the Hydra heads with the now 3/3 Shambling Suit. We'll attack another Hydra head with the Orzhov Enforcer. We'll attack the Snapping Fang head with a 2/2 Winter Moor Commander. Because of Death Touch, every creature will die in addition to the regular Hydra head. So we'll gain 8 life and draw a card each. That takes each deck up to 27. Then we'll draw a card. Syr Gwyn draws an Arcane Signet. Chulane draws a Spectral Sailor. Korvold draws Judith the Scourge Diva. Alela draws a Chemist's Insight. Now we'll reveal 6 cards to see if there are any new heads. There are 2 new heads, one regular Hydra head and a Ravenous Brute head, which is an elite head, so it does 2 damage each turn. We'll pass the turn to the Horde. The Horde will cast the topmost card, which is Torn Between Heads. Tap up to 2 heads. They don't untap during the Hydra's next untap step. Torn Between Heads deals 5 damage to each player. So we're all going to take 5, except Chulane is going to tap the Protector to protect Alela this time. So we'll all go down to 22 except for Alela, who will go down to 23. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Syr Gwyn draws a Foulmire Knight, and we will discard the Crystal Slipper. Chulane draws an Arcane Signet, and we will discard the Prison Realm. Korvold draws a Command Tower, and we will discard the Forest. Alela draws a Swamp, and we will discard the Emergence Zone. We'll untap. We'll draw. Syr Gwyn draws a Mace of the Valiant. Chulane draws a Thorn Mammoth. Korvold draws a Stomping Ground. Alela draws an Island. Syr Gwyn will spend 2 mana to play the Arcane Signet. Then we'll tap the Arcane Signet and the other 2 to play the Mace of the Valiant. This is an equipment. And it says, equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each charge counter on Mace of the Valiant and has Vigilance. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a charge counter on Mace of the Valiant. We'll spend 5 mana and cast Chulane, Teller of Tales. He is a 2/4 human druid, legendary, with Vigilance. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card, and you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. You pay 3 and tap him to return a target creature you control to its owner's hand. We will then tap the Temple of Mystery and the Rosethorn Acolyte to play a Paradise Druid, which is a 2/1 Elf Druid. It has hexproof as long as it's untapped, and then you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. As we cast a creature spell, we'll draw a card. It's a District Guide. Korvold will play the Command Tower, and then Korvold will tap the 5 lands over down here to cast Korvold the Fey-Cursed King. He's a 4/4 Dragon Noble with Flying. Whenever Korvold the Fey-Cursed King enters the battlefield or attacks, sacrifice another permanent. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Korvold and draw a card. We'll sacrifice the food. We'll put a +1/+1 counter on Korvold and we'll draw a card. We get a Gruul Guildgate. Alela will play a Swamp, and then we will tap 4 mana to play Alela. Alela is a 2/3 legendary creature fairy warlock with Flying, Death Touch, and Lifelink. Other creatures you control with Flying get +1/+0. Whenever you cast an artifact or enchantment spell, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with Flying. We'll go to combat. Orzhov Enforcer will attack the Brute Head. Wintermoor Commander will attack the Hydra Head. This will seal the deal on both of them, killing them both, giving us 4 life apiece, and then drawing each player a card. That will take every player to 26 except for Alela, who goes to 27. We'll draw a card. Syr Gwyn draws a Godless Shrine. We'll play the Godless Shrine tapped. Chulane draws a Forest. We'll play the Forest off of Chulane's trigger. Korvold draws a Pollenbite Druid. Alela draws a Notorious Guildgate. We'll reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There's 1 new Hydra head. And then we'll pass the turn to the Hydra. The Hydra will cast the topmost card. It casts Swallow the Hero Whole. Each player exiles a creature he or she controls until the Hydra's next turn. When a head leaves the battlefield, return the exiled cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. Syr Gwyn will exile the Inspiring Veteran. Chulane will exile the Rose Thorn Acolyte. Korvold will exile the Gluttonous Troll. Alela will exile the Shambling Suit. We'll take 1 damage from the Hydra Head to go down to 25, except for Alela, and tapping the Protector Chulane, they'll go down to 26. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Syr Gwyn draws a Tournament Grounds, and we will discard the Tournament Grounds. Chulane will draw a Hallowed Fountain, and we will discard the Spectral Sailor. Korvold will draw a Savvy Hunter, and we will discard the Gruul Guildgate. Alela will draw an Island, and we will discard the Azorius Guildgate. We'll untap. We'll draw. Syr Gwyn draws a Swamp. Chulane draws a Biomancer's Familiar. Korvold draws a Forest. Alela draws a Frogify. Syr Gwyn will play the Swamp. Syr Gwyn will spend all the mana and cast herself. She is a 5/5 human knight legendary creature with vigilance and menace, and whenever an equipped creature you control attacks, you draw a card and lose a life. Equipment you control have equip Knight 0. This will trigger the Mace of the Valiant, putting a counter on it. And we'll equip the Steelclaw Lance to the Syr Gwyn, and we'll equip the Mace to the Wintermoor Commander. We'll also tap the Arcane Signet to play the Colossus Hammer, and we'll stick the hammer on Syr Gwyn, unnecessary as that is. Chulane will tap 2 mana and play the Arcane Signet. We'll also play the Hallowed Fountain tapped, and then we'll tap the remaining mana to cast the Thorn Mammoth. This is a 6/6 elephant with trample. Whenever Thorn Mammoth or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Thorn Mammoth fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. We're going to fight the Hydra Head. The Hydra Head dies. We each gain 2 life to go up to 28 or 27. We'll reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There are no new heads, and the Brawl decks defeat the Hydra in regular difficulty. We'll be right back for hard mode. It's hard mode time! We're going to draw 7 cards apiece, and we have 4 Hydra heads that we're starting with on the battlefield. Syr Gwyn draws a single combat, Mountain, Plains, Colossus Hammer, Order of Midnight, Windscarred Crag, and Plains. There is not a lot of action here, so we're going to mulligan this using our free mulligan. Syr Gwyn's second hand has a Command Tower, Filemire Knight, Mirage's Axe, Rakdos Guildgate Tournament Grounds, Mask of Immolation, and Knight's Charge. This is not an amazing hand, but just the fact that we have a Filemire Knight, which is a Death Touch creature, is amazing against the Hydra, so we will keep it. Chulane draws a Beanstalk Giant, Island, Incubation Druid, Keeper of Fables Plains, Incubation, and Flower. I think on the power of the flower to get the force that we need, we will keep this hand. Korvold draws a Dreadhorde Invasion, Palmbright Druid, Gruul Guildgate, Priest of the Forgotten Gods, Cryptic Caves, Taste of Death, and Rugged Highland. This, we need a black mana. We don't have it, and so we're going to mulligan. Now we have a Command Tower, Swamp, Leyland Prowler, Goblin Crater Maker, Priest of the Forgotten Gods, Jungle Hollow, and Vindictive Vampire. This is a fine hand. We will keep it. Alela draws Sephara Sky's Blade, Evolving Wild Plains, All That Glitters, Tranquil Cove, Command Tower, and Bag of Holding. I think this is a fine hand, so we will keep it. Turn 1, Syr Gwyn draws an Evolving Wilds. Chulane draws a Growth Spiral. Korvold draws a Krenko Tin Street Kingpin. Alela draws an Arcanist Owl. Syr Gwyn will play the Tournament Grounds. This is a land that taps for colorless, but you can also tap to add red, white, or black. Spend this mana only to cast a knight or equipment spell. We'll tap it for black to cast the Filemire Knight. This is a 1/1 zombie knight with Death Touch. Then we'll tap the warrior to give it haste. Chulane will play the Plains. We'll tap the Plains to cast Flower. This is a sorcery. Search your library for a basic forest or plains card, reveal it, put it into your hand and shuffle your library. We'll grab a forest. Here it is. We'll put it in our hand. We'll shuffle. Korvold will play the Jungle Hollow tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, we'll gain 1 life to go to 31. Alela will play the Command Tower. We'll tap it for Doesn't Matter. We'll play the Bag of Holding. This is an artifact. Whenever you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard, and then you can pay 2, tap, draw a card, then discard a card, or 4, tap, sacrifice Bag of Holding, return all the cards, exile the Bag of Holding to their owner's hand. Then we'll go to combat. Falmar Knight will attack into a Hydra head. The Hydra head will die. We will all gain 2 life apiece to go to 32 or 33 for Korvold. We'll reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. We reveal a Savage Vigor head. It says it's an elite head. At the beginning of the Hydra's end step, reveal the top card of the Hydra's library. The Hydra casts that card. There's also a Noxious Hydra Breath, which goes to the graveyard. Then we'll go to the Hydra's turn. We will cast the topmost card, which is Neck Tangle. If there are 5 or more heads, there are not. Otherwise, reveal the top card of the Hydra's library, and the Hydra casts that card. We'll cast a turn between heads. We'll tap the Savage Vigor head and the regular Hydra head. And then the Savage Vigor head will trigger, and we'll cast 1 more of these, which is a Snapping Fang head. The Snapping Fang head will then trigger, dealing 1 extra damage, so we will take 5 damage apiece, plus another 5 from the Torn Between heads, taking 10 damage apiece. Chulane will tap himself to protect himself, and the right side of the table will go down to 23, and the left side will go down to 22. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Syr Gwyn will draw in Ob Nixilis' Cruelty, and we will discard the Ob Nixilis' Cruelty. Chulane will draw a Sithana Wayfinder, and we'll discard the Sithana Wayfinder. Korvold will draw a Blood-Soaked Altar, and we'll discard the Blood-Soaked Altar. Alela will draw a Plains, and we will discard the Plains. The Plains will exile under the bag of holding. We'll untap. Syr Gwyn will draw a Knight Vanguard. Chulane will draw a Simic Guildgate. Korvold draws a Paradise Druid. Alela draws an Empyrean Eagle. Syr Gwyn will play a Command Tower, and we'll tap the Tournament Ground and the Command Tower to play the Knight Vanguard. This is a 1/2 human knight with flying. Whenever it attacks, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token that's tapped and attacking. We'll tap to give it haste. Chulane will play a Forest. We'll tap both of these to play the Incubation Druid. This is a 0/2 elf druid, and you can tap to add 1 mana of any type that a land you control could produce. If Incubation Druid has a +1/+1 counter on it, add 3 mana of that type instead. You can pay 3 green to adapt for 3. Korvold will play a Command Tower. We'll tap both of these and play the Paradise Druid. Alela will play a Tranquil Cove tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, she'll gain 1 life to go up to 23. We'll go to combat. We'll attack with the Falmar Knight into the Savage Vigor head, and the Knight Vanguard into a regular Hydra head. This will create a 1/1 soldier creature that's also tapped and attacking. We'll attack that into the same Hydra head. We'll only kill the Snapping Fang head, but that's the most dangerous one, so that's fine. We'll gain 4 life apiece to go up to 26 for every deck but Alela. Alela will go up to 27. And then we'll each draw a card. Gwyn draws a Colossus Hammer. Chulane draws a Fairy Vandal. Korvold draws a Golgari Guildgate. Alela draws a Plains. We'll reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There are no new heads. And then we will pass the turn to the Hydra. The Hydra will cast the topmost card, which is Strike the Weak Spot. Destroy target head. If that head was elite, the Hydra takes an extra turn after this one. We will destroy the Snapping Fang head. It is an elite, and the Hydra will take an extra turn after this one. We'll each gain 4 life apiece and draw a card, taking us up to 30 or 31 apiece. We'll also lose 3 life, so we're actually just going to get 1 life apiece. We'll also reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. We'll gain 4 apiece, but lose 2 from the existing Hydra head, so we'll go up 2 total. That'll take Alela to 29 and the rest to 28, except Chulane will put the Protector on himself, so he'll go up to 29 as well. And then we will each draw a card. Syr Gwyn draws Mace of the Valiant. Chulane draws a District Guide. Korvold draws a Plague Crafter. Alela draws a Shine Chaser. The Hydra will take their second turn. They'll untap, they'll draw, and they'll cast the Hydra's Impenetrable Hide. Each hit gains Indestructible until the end of the Hydra's next turn. So we'll all take 3 damage apiece, taking the decks down to 25 or 26, depending on which deck they are. And at the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Syr Gwyn draws Sir Conrad the Grim, and we will discard the Mask of Immolation. Chulane draws a Shark Crab, and we will discard the Incubation Incongruity. Korvold will draw Sir Conrad the Grim, and we will discard the Plague Crafter. Alela will draw a Mana Geode, and we will discard the Evolving Wilds. We'll untap. Syr Gwyn will draw Plains. Chulane will draw an Island. Korvold will draw a Rakdos Guildgate. Alela will draw Winged Words. Syr Gwyn will play the Plains. We'll tap all three of these to play the Mace of the Valiant. We'll play an island. And then we'll tap 2 to play a Fairy Vandal. This is a 1/2 Fairy Rogue with Flash. Flying, whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Fairy Vandal. We'll tap the forest and the island to play the Growth Spiral. It says draw a card, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. We draw a card, and because we drew our second card, we will put a +1/+1 counter on Fairy Vandal. And then we can put a land card from our hand onto the battlefield, so we'll put a Simic Guildgate onto the battlefield. Korvold will play the Rakdos Guildgate tapped, and then we'll tap these three to play the Leyland Prowler. This is a 2/3 Nightmare Beast with Death Touch and Lifelink, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Alela will play the Plains. Oh, the Evolving Wilds is exiled, right? Under the Bag of Holding. And then we will tap 3 mana to play the Mana Geode. When Mana Geode enters the battlefield, scry 1. We'll take a look at the top. It's a Blood-Soaked Altar. We'll put that at the bottom. And you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. We have nothing else to cast this turn, so Alela will pass the turn. We'll go to the Hydra's turn. The Hydra will cast the topmost card. This is Ravenous Broodhead. We'll be taking 5 damage from the assembled heads. And Chulane will be Nuh-uh-uh. We'll take 1 less damage than that. And it will be Syr Gwyn that takes 1 less damage. So everybody will go down to 21, except for Korvold will go down to 20. And then we'll use the Harvester. Gwyn draws a Silverwing Squadron, and we will discard the Colossus Hammer. Chulane will draw a Tranquil Cove, and we will discard the Evolving Wilds. Korvold draws a Forest, and we will discard the Vindictive Vampire. Alela draws a Dismal Backwater, and we will discard the Winged Words. We'll untap. Gwyn draws a Mountain. Chulane draws a Plains. Korvold draws a Savvy Hunter. Alela draws an Animating Fairy. We'll play the Rakdos Guildgate tapped. We'll tap these 3 to play Knight's Charge. This is an enchantment. Whenever a knight you control attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And then for 6 white/black, sacrifice Knight's Charge, return all knight creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. We'll play the Tranquil Cove tapped, and then we'll tap the remaining 5 to cast Chulane. We'll play the Swamp, and then we'll spend 5 mana to play Sir Conrad the Grim. He's a legendary creature human knight that's a 5/4. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into your graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. You can spend 1 in a black for each player to put the top card of their library into their graveyard. We'll play the Dismal Backwater tapped. When it enters the battlefield, we'll gain 1 life to go up to 22. Then we'll tap 4 and play Alela. We'll go to combat. The Foulmire Knight will attack the Ravenous Broodhead. The Sky Knight Vanguard will attack with the soldier, and that will create another soldier that's tapped and attacking with it. And because we have 2 knights that are attacking, that's another 2 life loss, which will redirect into a head. And so we will take out 1 of the Hydra heads with this team and then apply the 2 life loss to another Hydra head. We'll attack into that Hydra head with the Fairy Vandal. And the Leyland Prowler will hit another Hydra head. We'll gain 2 life from the lifelink to go up to 22. This will kill the Ravenous Broodhead, and 2 Hydra heads will gain 6 life apiece to go up to 28 or 27, depending on which deck you are. And we will each draw a card as well. Syr Gwyn draws an Order of Midnight. Chulane draws a Forest. Korvold draws a Judith the Scourge Diva. Also, the 3 dying creatures trigger Sir Conrad the Grim, which will also hit the final Hydra head 3 times to kill it as well, which will get every other creature 2 more life to go up to 30 or 29. Alela draws a Scoured Barrens. This Hydra head is also dead, which will deal 1 more damage, but there's nothing for it to hit. We'll reveal 4 cards to see if there are any new heads. 8 cards actually, so another 4. There are 2 new Hydra heads. And then we will pass to the Hydra. The Hydra will cast the topmost card, which is a Nectangle. If there are 5 or more heads, otherwise reveal the top card of the Hydra's library and then cast that card. We have a Disorienting Glower. Players can't cast spells until the Hydra's next turn. That's fine. At the end of the player's turn, Alela has too many cards, so she will have to discard one. She will discard Sephara Sky's Blade. At the end of the Hydra's turn, we will all take 3 damage apiece, but Chulane will spare himself so that everybody will go down to 27 except for Gwyn, who will go down to 26. Except Gwyn should have gained 2 life, and so Gwyn will go up to 28. And then we'll use the Harvester. Gwyn draws a Godless Shrine, and we will discard the Evolving Wilds. Chulane draws an island, we'll discard the island. Korvold draws a Find Finality, we will discard the Priest of the Forgotten Gods. Alela draws a Swamp, we will discard the Scoured Barrens. We'll untap. The Mace of the Valiant should have gotten a counter from the soldier entering the battlefield. We'll draw. Gwyn draws a Mountain. Chulane draws a Steelbane Hydra. Korvold draws a Rhythm of the Wild. Alela draws a Swamp. We will play a Mountain over here. We'll tap out and play a Syr Conrad the Grim over here. Chulane will play a Forest. We'll pay 3 mana to cast Fertile Footsteps, which is a sorcery adventure. Search your island for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. We have a Forest. Shuffle. And then we'll also tap 4 more mana to cast a Shark Crab. It's a 4/4 Fish Octopus Crab for 2 green blue. You can adapt for 1 whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on it. Tap a target creature an opponent controls. It doesn't untap during its next step. We cast a creature card, so we'll draw a card. We can put a land onto the battlefield. We'll choose an island. Korvold will play a Forest. We'll spend 3 mana to play Rhythm of the Wild. This is a enchantment. Creature spells you control can't be countered, and non-token creatures you control have Riot. We'll then spend 3 more mana to cast the Savvy Hunter. It will get a +1/+1 counter. We will spend 4 mana here to cast the Arcanist Owl. This is an artifact creature, bird, 3/3 with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, we'll look at the top 4 cards. You may reveal an artifact or enchantment card from among them, put it into your hand, and then put the rest in the bottom in any order. We'll choose the Shambling Suit, and we'll put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Because we cast an artifact card, we'll create a fairy. We'll use this token to act as our fairy, which is a 2/1. The Arcanist Owl is a 4/3. We'll go to combat. Leyland Prowler will attack the Ravenous Broodhead. We'll gain 2 life from the lifelink. Team Knight will attack the regular Hydra head, and we'll create a 1/1 soldier that's tapped and attacking. One of these is tapped and attacking. And then we'll add another counter to the Mace of the Valiant. This will kill both of these. We'll gain 4 life apiece. And we'll do a pile of additional damage, but there's nothing to hit with the Korvold, with Syr Conrad's, and the Knight's Charge. The Knight's Charge will give us an additional 2 life here to go to 30. That means that Gwyn will go to 34, Alela will go to 31, Korvold will go to 33, and Chulane will go to 30. We'll each draw a card. Gwyn draws a Mountain, Chulane draws a Tome of Legends, Korvold draws a Thorn Mammoth, Alela draws a Smothering Tithe. And then we'll reveal 4 cards to see if there are any new heads. There are 2 new heads, Shrieking Titan head and the Hydra head. Shrieking Titan head says, at the beginning of the Hydra's end step, each player discards a card. Then we'll go to the Hydra's turn. The Hydra will cast the topmost card, which is a Hydra head. The Shrieking Titan head will trigger, everybody will discard a card, and that will be the Mountain for Syr Gwyn. Chulane discards the Steelbane Hydra. Korvold discards the Cratermaker. Alela needed to discard 1 anyways at the end of the turn, so we'll discard a Swamp, and then we'll have to discard another card. We'll discard the Smothering Tide. Then we'll take 4 damage apiece, except for Chulane will prevent 1 damage to himself. Syr Gwyn will go down to 30. Alela will go down to 27. Korvold will go down to 29. Chulane will go down to 27. Then we'll use the Harvester. Gwyn draws a Swamp and will discard the Mountain. Chulane draws a Plains and will discard the Plains. Korvold draws a Forest, will discard the Guildgate. Alela draws an Angelic Exaltation, and we will discard the Angelic Exaltation. We'll untap. We'll draw. Gwyn draws a Response Resurgence. Chulane draws a Fairy Formation. Korvold draws a Rugged Highlands. Alela draws an Arcane Signet. Gwyn will play the Swamp. We'll tap out and cast her from the command zone. This will put a counter on the mace. And then we will equip the mace onto the Vanguard, I guess. We'll play the Plains. We'll spend 5 mana to cast Keeper of Fables. This is a 4/5 cat. Whenever one of our non-human creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. That causes us to draw a card off of Chulane. We get a Gyre Engineer. We'll spend 3 more mana. Cast a District Guide. This is a 2/2 Elf Scout. When District Guide enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card or gate card, reveal it, put it to your hand, and then shuffle your library. We'll go grab an untapped land. Forest, we'll put it into our hand, we'll shuffle. Because we cast a creature, we'll draw a card. We draw a Blossoming Sands. We can put a card onto the battlefield per Chulane. We'll tap these 2. We'll play Tome of Legends. This is an artifact and enters the battlefield with a page counter. Whenever your commander enters the battlefield or attacks, put a page counter on Tome of Legends. There we go. And you can spend 1 tap and remove a page counter to draw a card. We'll play a Forest. We'll spend 7 mana here to cast the Thorn Mammoth. It'll jump on in here and beat up on one of the Hydra heads to kill it. Hydra head dies. We'll each gain 2 life apiece. Gwyn goes to 32. Alela goes to 29. Korvold goes to 31. Chulane goes to 29. We'll reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There's 1 new Hydra head. We'll play a Plains over here. Then we'll tap 2 mana to play the Arcane Signet, which will create another fairy token. And then we will spend 3 mana to play the Empyrean Eagle. This is a 2/3 bird spirit with flying, and other creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. And then we'll spend 2 more mana to cast All That Glitters. We'll attach it to Alela, and it is an enchantment. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. We created another enchantment, so we'll get another fairy. These should all be exiled as well. Everything is exiled. Alela is +4/+4. We'll go to combat. We'll attack with Alela into the Shrieking Titan head, I guess. All of the knights that can attack will attack one of the Hydra heads. This will trigger, we'll get another knight that's tapped and attacking, and then it'll trigger 3 more times. The Hydra's going to lose a bunch more life. Everything's going to die, so we won't worry about that. We'll get 3 life from the triggers. Go to 35. And this will give the mace another counter. So just a pile of damage coming in, everything's going to die. Chulane's going to attack into one of the heads for a counter on the tome. Because we drew another card, the Vandal will get another counter. We'll also attack with the Leyland Prowler into another head to kill it. We'll gain a couple more life from that lifelink to go to 33. Alela getting +6 will take her up to 35. All of the heads die. We gain 8 life apiece and draw a card each. Gwyn will go up to 43 and we'll draw a Venerable Knight. Chulane will go up to 37 and we'll draw a Plains. Korvold will go up to 41 and we'll draw a Forest. Alela will go up to 43 and we'll draw an Emergence Zone. We'll reveal 6 cards to see if there are any new heads. There is 1 new head, the Ravenous Brute head. And then we'll pass to the Hydra. They'll cast the topmost card, which is Noxious Hydra Breath. Choose 1. Noxious Hydra Breath deals 5 damage to each player or destroy each tapped non-head creature. Go ahead and take the 5 damage apiece. Chulane will tap and prevent 1 damage, so he'll only go down 4. We'll take 2 extra damage, so we'll be taking a total of 7 damage apiece minus Chulane, who will take 6. That'll take Gwyn down to 36, Alela down to 36, Korvold down to 34, Chulane down to 30. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Gwyn draws a Bloodfell Caves and will discard the Bloodfell Caves. Chulane will draw a Leafkin Druid, and we will discard the Gyre Engineer, I guess. Chulane will draw a Forest, and we will discard the Forest. Alela will draw a Azorius Guildgate, and we'll discard the Guildgate. We'll untap. Oh, the Thorn Mammoth should have gotten a counter when it entered the battlefield because of the Rhythm of the Wild. Gwyn draws a Scoured Baron. Chulane draws a Thorn Mammoth. Korvold draws a Swamp. Alela draws a Scrabbling Claws. Gwyn will play the Scoured Barrens tapped. Will tap out and play a Silverwing Squadron. It is a star human knight with flying and vigilance. Silverwing Squadron's power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. Whenever it attacks, create a number of 2/2 white knight creature tokens with vigilance equal to the number of opponents that you have. It enters the battlefield, so we'll put a counter on this. And because we have 9 creatures, it's a 9/9. We'll tap it to give it haste. Chulane will play a Plains. Chulane will tap all of this mana here to play the Thorn Mammoth. We've seen this before. It enters the battlefield. We'll draw a card off of it, which is the Parhelion 2. We'll play the Blossoming Sands tapped off of Chulane's ability. This will trigger and give us a life, because that's what it says on the card. And then we will punch the Ravenous Brutehead, which will kill it. Everybody will get 2 life and draw a card. Chulane goes up to 33 and draws a Forest. Korvold goes up to 36 and draws a Woodland Champion. Alela goes up to 38 and draws a Heraldic Banner. Syr Gwyn goes up to 38 and draws an Embereth Shieldbreaker. We'll reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There's a regular Hydra head. Then we will spend 2 more mana, tapping a green and a blue to cast a Leafkin Druid. Triggers, we draw a card, we get Forbidding Spirit. We'll put the Forest onto the battlefield, and then this causes the Thorn Mammoth to punch the Hydra head. Everybody will gain 2 life. Chulane goes to 35, Korvold goes to 38, Gwyn goes to 40, Alela goes to 40. We'll reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There are no new heads, and the Brawl decks finally defeat the Hydra pretty resoundingly. Maybe the Brawl decks could go down to 20 life versus the challenge decks, and maybe that's what I should be doing because they only have 1 opponent, and so I think I'll do that for the rest of the challenge decks. We didn't get close to losing, so it wasn't really a problem in this case. Let me know what you thought about the games in the comments below. Obviously, I missed triggers and things like that throughout just because the board states get really complicated. It's hard for me to track everything. If you noticed anything that was an egregious error, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, you can hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of these videos, you can hit subscribe. Next time I'll be taking these 4 decks up against the Battle of the Horde challenge deck from Born of the Gods. Until then, this was Refresh, and thanks for watching.